Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this What's Next session, where we, AWS developer advocates, dive deep on the latest launches from AWS reInvent with members of our service teams. My name is Rohini Gaonkar, and here we have our guest Omar to talk about Amazon Elastic Container Registry, also known as ECR, public. Before we proceed, just wanted to announce our viewers today to message the AWS on air on Twitter with your questions, and we will make sure we get answers to them. And stay tuned till the end of the session for a live demo by Omar. Omar, it would be great if you can introduce yourself to the viewers.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Paul. I am Amazon ECR's product manager. So over here at AWS, a product for the AWS Container Registry.
Thanks, Omar. So, ECR has been a very popular private container repository for some time now, right? And I remember in November, sometime this year, we also announced that we are intending to create a public container registry. And we stayed true to that promise at our AWS reInvent when we actually launched the ECR public, right? And since then, I've seen a lot of interest, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone who's watching this episode today is as excited as I am to dive deep into the service. So let's begin with the first obvious question. Can you talk a bit more about the new launch?
Yes, of course. No, yes, we did. You were correct. Early November, we pre-announced that we would be doing a public container registry, and we stay true to that. You're correct. And at reInvent, we GA'd, made generally available both the Amazon ECR public container registry as well as an Amazon ECR public gallery, which is a website where anybody in the world can go search for publicly shared software. So it was very exciting. We've been working on this for many months, and it's been a strong customer ask, really, that we wanted to do this. And yep, really happy to get this done. Interest has been high. We've already got a few thousand public images in there. We're seeing a good number of polls. So yes, very excited.
Awesome. So while you're talking about customers, right, and definitely it seems to be beneficial to customers, can you talk a bit more on these benefits of having a public container registry for our customers?
Yes, for sure. So I think one thing has become clear, and for those of us who work in the container space, we've known this for a while. As applications modernize and as traditional VM workloads move into more containers and even serverless style architectures, public container software is a vital part of the software supply chain, right? So for those of us who work in the field, and for our viewers, a container image is really a layer. It's a bunch of images layered together, right? And quite often, base layers inside an image are commonly shared. Take an operating system like Amazon Linux, for instance, popular web servers in environments such as Nginx, or databases such as Mongo or Elasticache. So what happens is communities and software companies and vendors make these images public. And customers then take build time dependencies. They pull the image, they create their own application image, and even at runtime, they will pull from public registries. This is also super common in the Kubernetes community, which, as we know, is on fire. But there's a lot of open source and add-on software that is pulled from public registries. And we know that if there's a disruption in that supply chain, there is immediate customer pain. And one of the reasons we wanted to do a public container registry was, I think, brought to light when we pre-announced this in November. We saw pain that our customers were feeling from rate limits that Docker Hub had instituted, right? And this was common to all cloud providers. So the first benefit, I think, of ECR Public is reliable geo-replicated image storage, right? When a developer gives us an image, we share it to the world, we bring ECR's multi-year reliability and uptime and scale tech and our experience in operating that registry to a public container registry. We want to make sure our customers can take an operational dependency on a public registry and know that we will replicate and keep that up. And One of the outcomes of that has been an SLA. The ECR is a public container registry, ECR public, with a 99.9 SLA, matching our private registry. So the first benefit is one of reliability, right?
Public.
Right. And the second benefit, I think, is going to be a way for our AWS customers to leverage the power of other AWS services that we bring. So we know ECR private repos are very popular. There's synergy to be made between public repositories and private repositories working together. AWS, we know at reInvent Lambda launched, container image support, so you can
Support. Yeah.
unpackage functions, right? What could we do with public container
Yeah.
software that could potentially be launched into Lambda, potentially launched into Fargate, things of that sort. So I think, and finally, monetization. We have AWS Marketplace. It would
Right.
be nice for somebody to buy an image if it's being sold by a vendor and have the commerce transacted. So we think there's a lot of benefit by bringing other services in the AWS ecosystem together. And so those are, I think, the top two benefits I want to call out.
So you did touch base upon my next question, but I do also want to ask it explicitly. Like the ECR, you mentioned there's a public gallery for ECR, right?
Mhm.
And so if I understand correctly, it is going to also provide the AWS published images there as well.
Yeah. Yes, it will. In fact, some AWS published images are already there. Amazon Linux, for instance, the
Okay.
Amazon Linux operating system image is there. Um, so is when Lambda announced,
Lambda, yeah.
Lambda-based images are there. Another big launch we did earlier was Elastic Kubernetes Service, Amazon EKS, their distribution, their EKSD, the
This,
ECS
yeah,
distro.
yeah.
That's there too. The Amazon ECS agent, um, observability and telemetry images are there. And so our viewers, we should expect that as the weeks go by, more and more Amazon vended and AWS published images will start to show up on the gallery, and that becomes a definitive place where customers and anybody really in the world can go and get published image.
Awesome, awesome. So how will people actually use the service? Like, what are these different type of roles that are going to use this service? Can you just talk a bit more on that?
Yes, no, great question. If you think about a public registry, really a public container software distribution service, there are typically two audiences or personas, if you have to think about it. One is of a developer creating software, and the other is of a developer consuming or using software, right? And so that's really how we think about how ECR public and the public gallery will get used. So for the developers who create public software, we are leveraging the Amazon ECR Management Console experience. So you must have an AWS account in order to publish an image to ECR public, right? And literally signing up for an AWS account, you can do that. There's nothing there. You don't have to use any other AWS service at all, except for ECR if you want to publish an image. And indeed, that's one of our target customers. We'd really, really like developers to simply just look at ECR public as another distribution service for their software. That's it. Just sign up or sign in, publish to Amazon ECR. So you'll use the management console there, right? And then on the other side, developers who are using, we expect them to start at the gallery. So the gallery is found at gallery.ecr.aws. It's a website owned and operated by the service. It's free for anybody to use. You go there and you search for public images, and we'll demo that later towards the show. And from there you get your pull commands, and you pull an image. Now, one thing to note: you do not have to be an AWS account holder to search the gallery or to pull from ECR Public. Anonymous pulls are completely supported. So straight Docker pull, no login, nothing. You're going to get an image, a
Awesome.
public.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. So there is the one role of a publisher, and the other is of a consumer of that image. And
Yeah.
then we definitely will see that in the demo. So I'm excited for that. So the next question I would have is it only for AWS customers? Like I understand from the publishing part, if I understand correctly, you need to have an AWS account for publishing, right? But
Yes.
then the obvious question is this only for AWS customers or anyone can use it?
Ah, anyone can use it. It is not just for AWS customers. Indeed, we hope that we reach developers who use public container software and don't ever use AWS, and that will be just fine by us, because ultimately it goes back to the first benefit we spoke about. To bring reliable container software distribution, right, you are necessarily targeting millions of container developers worldwide who may never use AWS, and that is just fine for us. We want them to come search on the gallery, we want them to do an anonymous pull, and we want them to use ECR just as a public place to download the images and build with and run with. That's fine. That being said, because it is in AWS set of regions, and we have a bunch of AWS services, there is benefit if you are in fact an AWS customer and running container workloads in AWS, right? It is evident when we talk about pricing later. We can get into that later. You get additional benefits if you're an AWS customer, such as one of the things we want to do in the future is VPC support, private link support, right? The
Okay.
ability to pull a public image without ever going to the public internet. That's something
Okay.
security conscious customers really would like. So those are additional benefits, but to your question, you do not have to be an AWS a customer to pull. You do have to have an AWS account to push.
Right, right. So in true sense, when it's a consumer, it's truly public in nature. So it's available for anyone to pull through, right?
Yes.
Now that you've talked about pricing, I did have some questions around pricing, like how much is it going to cost, and who actually pays for this cost
Of
from the
course.
consumer and the publisher perspective?
No, for sure. So I'll go back to how we spoke about the audiences that we see working with the public registry, right? Those who create and those who use. And so pricing actually follows that. And one of the things we worked really hard was to create a frictionless, essentially free service. So the two pricing dimensions are as follows. If you publish a public image, you are charged for image storage. However, you are given a monthly free storage allowance of 50 GB. And we
Okay,
know that most public images and most public image versions do not reach that. It's the select
quite
few
lightweight.
across that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we think that this will meet the needs of 99.9% of all our users who publish public images. So what this means is when you push a public image to ECR Public, for the first 50 GB worth of those images, you don't see a charge. We replicate that image to multiple regions. We'll keep changing what we do for performance and for reliability. Developers do not see any of that. It is transparent to them. They simply pay for that. And after 50 GB, they're charged what they're charged today for Amazon ECR, which is 10 cents per GB month. And to give you an idea of what that means, this means that if you give 1 terabyte worth of public images to ECR Public, you're probably paying between $90 to $95 a month. And this is geo-replicated everywhere in the world storage. Like, I mean, in that it's up to us, and we'll take care of putting it in different places for our developers. So that's one side, right?
Publisher side. Yeah.
The publisher side. If you're a developer using, I spoke that we support anonymous pulls, which means we don't know who's pulling. So there is in fact no charge. It's free to pull, right? In order to manage our pulls, we give 500 GB of
Okay.
downloads to the internet on public image pulls per source IP per month. So you can pull
Okay.
500 GB worth of images every month from a source IP without worrying about getting charged. And after 500 GB, if you sign into an AWS account and do exactly the same set of pulls by doing nothing but having an AWS account, right? That 500 GB becomes 5 terabytes per month.
Okay. Okay.
And that kind of means that,
That's quite huge.
and that's not all. If you run on AWS compute and do a public image pull from ECR Public, you never pay for bandwidth. It is unlimited bandwidth regardless of AWS region you will run your compute workload in if you pull from ECR public. So we tried really hard to make it frictionless to start with really, really high limits on pulls. And if you're an AWS customer running in compute, another benefit I was talking to earlier, you will never
Okay,
pay
so
for bandwidth
so
egress
you'll never pay for it if you're an AWS customer using
running on
compute
AWS
on the
compute.
yeah, yeah. So that's the one of the benefits that you were talking about. That's quite interesting. Like, okay, that's a huge amount of pulls that you're giving for free before they become a AWS customer, and then it's just free to consume.
Correct. Yes. It is
Hmm?
essentially free pricing optimized for AWS customers, if I had to summarize it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And just before we get into the demo, because I do also want to spend some time on the demo, are there any obvious limits that the viewers or us, whoever's going to use ECR public, should be aware of before we get into ECR? So, any limits that you want to talk about, any challenges or something you want to tell
Sure.
us?
Yes, yes, of course. So ECR, Amazon ECR itself today publishes, we publicly state certain API usage limits. That is, in a sustained per second rate, how often can you push, right? So ECR public matches those on the push side. So any of our viewers can go to the ECR, can just search for Amazon ECR service quotas, Amazon ECR limits, and you will see push limits. And I'm trying to recall at the top of my mind what they are. But at heart, it basically comes down to something like 20 sustained image pushes per second, right? Or is it 200? Anyway, I'll get back to you on that one. On the pull side, we do have two sets of limits, again, documented. One set is if you're an anonymous pull, you can pull one image per second. So,
Okay.
so sustained pull, one per second, right? So that is, and that we know is high because a lot of our build systems that typically pull public images and build from, most of the images that they use are cached locally. So quite often the pulls are not bringing down much data anyway. So that's good. And if you go up to an AWS account, then your limits now climb to 10 sustained pulls per account per second. And this is AWS, and you would expect that we will continue to work harder to make our limits even higher. So our viewers should know that this is the floor of where we are, not the ceiling. We're just going to get better at this.
As always, definitely. But whoever's watching this, if you are confused a bit, these are definitely documented in the documentation. So definitely go ahead and check out service quotas or limits. I'm not sure what the documentation title is, but it could be limits or service quota. So just go ahead and check it out if you're still confused. So I'm excited, and we do have our 10 minutes left. So let's go and check out the demo that you have for us today.
Sure. If you can see right
I can
now,
see your screen. Yeah.
perfect. What you are seeing is the website, the ECR Public Gallery website. So it's a website with a filter pane, as you'd expect. We can see that there are about 1,800 public repositories already. It's been about a week and a half since we launched. You can filter by verified accounts, and verified accounts for us are accounts that we have taken some look at, and we have a high degree of trust in them. For instance, the Amazon Linux account is here, and you can, each image or each repository has an about page where the developer of this image controls the content that they put, has a usage page where they can put any content they wish, and has a list of all the image versions that has been pushed and shared publicly. Right. So this is the gallery. It supports straight free search. So let's say we search for what I was talking about earlier, EKS distro. You can see EKS distro is images are here. Here is what was announced last 1.5 weeks ago for EKS distro. So the idea here is very simple. The idea here is you would go here, a developer would search and say, okay, there is this version there, and I'm going to either copy the URL here, and this is your public URL, or I can copy it from here, and this is the public URL.
Okay.
And that is the ECR public gallery. You can link off into the console from here. You can filter by Linux or Windows and different architectures, and you can expect that we'll be growing this more and more.
Great. So
Okay,
this is a public gallery for anyone who wants to consume or wants to access or pull the containers from ECR public.
exactly. Yep, this is where they would start their search from.
Okay, great.
So, the next thing to talk about, I think, should be the ECR public, the ECR management console. If you can see my screen right now, you will see that we have both a public and private repository structure. This is new for
Yes.
ECR. ECR typically never had this tab. So now a developer automatically gets to see their private and public repositories right there. You can see that there is also a, oops, forgive me, there is also registry information in here. I love that. Where you can get to control your registries and your the images that you're going to push and your custom alias and choosing a verified account. And we can get into all of that later, right? But I think the funnest part of this experience is going to be that I want to show you is how we can do an anonymous pull. So let's get to that. Where I am right now is I am actually in my EC2 console, right? And I am going to use another AWS service, which I really like, Systems Manager.
Okay.
And we will use Systems Manager to get a shell into an instance. So here is this instance of mine. I'm going to connect to this shell. And this is effectively giving me command line into an instance. If you can see my command line now, we will make sure that I have Docker here, which we do. So here's
Yep.
what we will do. We will go to the gallery. We will copy this URL. We will come here and we will do a Docker pull. I am unauthenticated. I am pulling down directly images from ECR Public. And this is the majority of our use cases, right? We are seeing that the majority of our pulls will in fact be anonymous, right? So if you take a look, here we go, right? And you can do something, you can use full Docker functionality such as we had one of our developer advocates, Baby, wrote a demo container. And so we, there you go. I do not have his image locally. Here we go. It is pulling it down right away. And it ran. So you can see this cute little link over there, which is actually an icon of Jeff Barr on ASCII. So
As simple as that.
yep, yep. What I want to highlight is a lot of other things. For instance, the documentation for the ECR public gallery. I'm going to show you for ECR public is where you'd expect it to be. There's a user guide, ECR public. There's a full API reference, and the AWS CLI, of course, has ECR public in there. So what I would recommend for our viewers is just like they expect everything. ECR public is a new API namespace service. So if you're familiar with using the AWS CLI, as you can see my screen right now, you will see it ECR has help, and so does ECR public.
So
So
that's
as I was
yeah.
explaining earlier,
Okay.
if you do this, you will see a list of all ECR public commands as well at the AWS CLI, and we expect a lot of the control plane API sets, such as creating a repository, pushing an image, describing your registries, and things of that nature to be done from the CLI.
Lovely.
Yep.
Lovely. Okay. Awesome. Anything else you want to cover in the demo about registering the image itself? Or
Sure, we can go through that. It'll take us a little bit of time, but what I do want to show
yeah.
you is what I did want to show you is if we go back to our ECR service, what you can expect from our public repositories, as you can see, I don't have an image inside here. If I did, and I would use this, you can see the push commands in here. So
Okay.
you can expect a developer to be able to do your standard logging into ECR public, building it, tagging it, and pushing it.
Wow.
And
Okay. So they can just copy the commands from here and just
yes,
start working with it right away. Okay.
yes, and this is standard for private and public images inside ECR as well. And there you go. The other thing to talk about is the gallery detail. Um, when you create a repository that's public, remember when we were on the gallery and we were
Yep.
looking at
The
Amazon
details.
Linux? Yes, we were looking at Amazon Linux over here. This content, which you see in about or you see in usage, that content is actually worked on here. So as you can see, in my case, it's empty, right? But if I hit edit, I can go in here and I can add markdown content, whatever I so
Awesome.
wish, right? This is right. And I can click preview to see what it looks like. That's heading, right?
Yep.
Here we go. And you can view an example to help create better content listings for your customers, for your users. And that you do by editing the repository.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. I think we have a minute left. So if there is something that you want to have, like what is next for our viewers? What can they do after this show? How do they get started? Anything you want to
For
uh,
sure.
talk about for the viewers?
So I'd recommend three things to do. One, take a look at the reInvent session for ECR Public. So I did a reInvent session for ECR Public. It will be streaming, of course. Take a look at that. It's about 25 minutes. Gives you an idea of why we did what we did in the overall landscape. Second, if you go to YouTube and search for Containers from the Couch, it's a series of YouTube videos that our containers developer advocates put out. There is a 1 hour YouTube stream and now recorded video on unboxing Amazon ECR Public. So I would encourage everybody to go take a quick search of that one, because that goes into a much bigger demo and we discuss back and forth with engineers on the call. So that's really fun. And the third thing is to, well, just give it a shot. Go to the gallery, pull an image, run it, go to sign up for an AWS account if you don't have one. Otherwise, use your AWS account, push an image, put some test content in there, and go find it in the gallery.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, I have actually seen that episode, and it was quite interesting, and it was a lot of fun with all the chatting and lots of things happening and lots of cool demos there. So definitely,
Yeah.
go check out that video after this. And I want to really thank you, Omar. This was really fun and insightful into ACR Public, and thank you for all the viewers for watching this.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.